Taking the baton from William Wilberforce and Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Eric Metaxas is here with a letter to serve as a warning bell. The warning is simple. The greatest regret any Christian will ever experience, the greatest shame that will be placed on Christians of almost every generation, is the regret and shame of silence. Nothing is worse for a Christian, be it a pastor behind the pulpit or a member sitting in the pews. Nothing is worse than our silence. A failure to speak of the gospel of faith in Jesus Christ, or a failure to speak against the evils of this current generation. Today, we need a host of Wilberforces and Bonhoeffers to speak against the growing evils in the West before our society is consumed by the terrors of Marxism once again, to the harms of the souls and bodies of all. Welcome to Rev Reads, your home for Christian book reviews from the perspective of a pastor. If you're new to the channel and you want to discover more educational and informative books, please subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with our most current reviews. If you're a regular to the channel, please like and share this video so others can read the powerful work of Eric Metaxas in Letter to the American Church. It is as if the Lord has been preparing Eric Metaxas through his previous books, those thick biographies he has written before. And let's be honest, if a man has written accurate and insightful biographies on Martin Luther, William Wilberforce, and Dietrich Bonhoeffer, when he writes about the lives of those men and knows how they have lived, we need to listen when he writes about speaking out today. And Letter to the American Church is the culmination of the wonderful biographies Eric Metaxas has already given to us. Metaxas writes that he sees a growing threat of Marxism in our society today. Not only is Marxism atheist and God-hating and growing in the West at large, but it is also creeping into the church and getting its claws on our leaders. And right now, Marxism's biggest influence is not encouraging our pastors to speak in favor of the evils of critical theory, although that is occurring more and more often. But the most common way that Marxism is influencing our churches is encouraging our pastors and church members to simply be quiet and to say nothing about the evils around you. Don't speak out on that sin issue, because then you might be labeled political. And we got to keep the church separate from the state. Metaxas writes, to secularize the public square is actually to impose upon it a religion of another kind, albeit in a way that very cleverly and dishonestly pretends not to be religious at all. The best chapter in this book was the spiral of silence. The spiral of silence refers to the idea that when people fail to speak, the price of speaking rises. As the price of speaking rises, still fewer speak out, which further causes the price to rise, so that fewer people yet will speak out, until a whole culture or nation is silenced. And the group in our nation that is most successful at raising the price of silence is pastors. When pastors and elders refuse to speak the truth of faith in Jesus Christ or against the popular and protected sins of the day, and let's be honest, we do this because we don't want to offend people who are in our churches. But when our leaders won't speak out, who then will speak? Fewer and fewer, until there are so few left speaking out that they can be thrown into prison, locked up, and no one will notice. And those who notice will just say, that's what you get for speaking out. Metaxas does a wonderful job tying our silence to our view of God himself. It is those who view God as a harsh taskmaster are the ones who are unwilling to stand for the truth. They are the ones who can't trust God to be good, to be with them when the storms come, when the rough days arrive after they have proclaimed God's word and denounced the world's sins. But those who view God as compassionate and faithful and gracious, they know they can take risks. They don't need to fear man because they stand in the fear of the Lord. And so they can face all of this world's dangers. There's a lot of evil in our society, and it is growing at an astonishing rate. Racism is growing, hatred more and more often thanks to critical theory. Families are being shattered by the devaluing of marriage and the family. Roe may have been overturned at a national level, but now we have corporations who are paying to fly their female employees to abortion-friendly states so that they can rid themselves of children and the joy of motherhood. Radical gender confusion is rising at shocking rates. The latest study says that the number of transgendered youth in America have doubled from 2020 to 2021. That went from 20,000 transgender youth to over 40,000. And we would be foolish to think that there is not a distinct possibility that we could have seen another doubling again of that number in 2022. Girls are having their breasts cut off. Boys are being weakened by medical castration through drugs. And through it all, we say nothing. And each time we say nothing, we show that we don't view God right, that we don't fear God. Instead, we fear man. And if you want to see where all of this evil ends, I'd encourage you to read the book Wormbrand, the story of Richard Wurmbrand and his wife and the suffering they felt under the Soviets, or the Gulag Archipelago. I have reviews on both of those books. But we need to follow Eric's call to speak out and be active. Now, before this review ends, I want to say a few short words on the writing of this book, since this is a book review. It's not a sermon, even if it sounds like one. This book just is a call to action, so it's got to kind of be a little bit sermonic. But the letter to the American church is very well written, as are all of Eric Metaxas' books. From a pure writing quality standpoint, I don't know if there's a better writer out who is a Christian today than Eric Metaxas, and the quality of his writing continues in this book. Now, those who are fans of Eric's work should know that there is a little bit of repetition in this book based on his earlier work. So if you've read his earlier books, you're going to cover a lot of familiar territory in this book. Now, I enjoy his writing so much that for me, that's fine. This is a letter, though. This is a call to action that is based upon Eric Metaxas' earlier biographies. And I got to say, I believe this is a must read. It's a short read. And we need to remember 50 years down the road, when they look at the evils of this generation, the most common question may be, why wasn't the church louder? Why didn't God's people speak up against these evils? Why were the pastors, why were the church members silent? Let that not be how they question our generation. Let us speak up against the evils. Let us speak up for the gospel, and let's lower the price of speaking the truth for everyone else today.